Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, if this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast, thanks for dropping by. And this is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby. So on this podcast, we talk about the games that we play in, the games that we run, and all the cool, awesome, wonderful people that we get to experience this hobby with. We try to demystify the GM screen. So, if you are new to tabletop RPGs, you should join in and find a table. And if you're a player, why not GM for your table? Give your GM a rest.
Indeed. So this week we've got a Pathfinder 2E session to get into, where, again, I thought the players could handle a certain combat, and didn't really work out the way I expected, and we may be talking about how to continue from this moment. And maybe I should stop throwing one big monster at them and instead make them two kind of big monsters. But we'll see about that. But yes. Before we get into all that fun stuff, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Calvin. Calvin, tell us what you learned this week.
What have I learned? Well, one thing that came up during a session, it wasn't specifically this one, although it might apply to it. It was a different session that I was running, and I was just kind of sitting back and letting the players talk to each other and develop those relationships, which is very necessary in the moment because I was introducing a new player with a new character and everything. So there was a lot of ground to cover to get everybody within the same group and moving in the same direction. And part of me was wondering have I given this person enough to work with that they can form this relationship? But as things were going on, it was everything is working, honestly, in some ways better than I had hoped. There's some mistrust among the group, but they recognize that they have similar goals, at least for the moment. And yeah, they were able to sort of develop that largely on their own without me having to interfere, even though I had an NPC in there who could poke in every now and then and nudge the conversation if necessary. But I didn't really feel a need to do that because I could just sit back and stop talking for a bit, really, and then just catch up on my note-taking.
Yeah, obviously, there's a new player at the table, so you want the party wants to play with them, but obviously you have to consider the continuum of the story, right? The actual, the verisimilitude of the world. So yeah, as a player, I've always been if there's a new character, I'm gonna try my best to steer my character to be please come join our party and save the world. Obviously you look more important because you have a name and a face and stuff like that. You probably should join us on this quest.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing of because as a person who is in the real world, that there's a new person in the game and they have to be put on the same track, but at the same time as your character is there has to be a reason there that you want to work together. And the players just managed to figure that out. I just to sit back, they sorted that all out, and then they come up with more interesting stuff than I could have if I said anything. Because again, it's multiple brains working together on a story instead of just mine on its own.
Yeah, that's true. And that also comes with time, I guess, because, you've been running some of these games for a couple of years now, right?
True.
So the players and you just it's the shtick, right? Everyone's kind of trusting everybody to make the whole world happen, right? It's not all on the GM. It's obviously a collaborative effort between the GM and the players to kind of sell the whole thing for the whole table.
Yeah, it does. Thinking about it, it does sort of apply to the session I wanted to talk about as well. Again, it was just I don't have to interfere here. The players will sort things out as they need to.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there you go, folks. There's your tip of the week. Thanks, Calvin. And let's jump into the show.
All right, so this week we're talking about a session in the Crown of Dragons campaign, which is a story that has the players collecting a series of orbs that are meant to go in this magical crown that is supposedly able to control all the dragons in this particular area. However, no one's seen an actual dragon for hundreds of years, so what could that all mean?
Man, I just realized that you could have just made it be if you collect all the dragon orbs, you get a wish, like Dragon Ball. And I was wait a minute.
No, it's too obvious. I'll save my obvious anime references for JoJo.
That's true. That's true. Have you even watched Dragon Ball, man?
Barely.
Barely. True. All right. Anyway,
I've watched like one anime that wasn't based on a toy.
which is JoJo's.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I guess I've watched Gurren Lagann as well.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, I mean that's a good one. Gurren Lagann is the best anime I've ever watched. Definitely in my top 5 of all time. I'll probably die thinking about that whole thing. Anyway,
That's entirely fair, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the thrust of the campaign. When we last left off with that group, there were some significant shifts because the party had been trying to deal with someone from one of the characters' pasts, a rival bard who had stolen some stuff from them after this bard essentially got arrested. But like super duper arrested and locked away in a magical prison. And when they had returned, they had been trying to get their stuff back and recover it from this person, and they got into a fight, and they ended up killing this guy and some of his backup dancers. And despite it largely being self-defense, at least that would have been their argument, the party sort of fractured in that one of them got arrested and he got taken back to his family home. The other, the bard, additionally got arrested and he was sort of like separated from the party. And the other two were left in the Adventurers Guild, since the party is part of that guild. And they were essentially there under protection, basically, just with an offer of like, you can stay here for the time being, but if it turns out that the circumstances are not what you've described, then, we'll give you up if necessary.
Right.
And in that time, those two, Valzana, an elven druid, and Talia, a human witch, they had been discussing, like, rather than recovering the orbs for the Adventurers Guild, which is what they had been tasked with doing, they considered just recovering them for themselves.
Yeah.
And that seemed to sort of change the direction that the party was going in to be a bit less good, a bit more evil, perhaps.
Well, at least a little bit more selfish. They've been paying with blood. I mean, like, think about it. Like, the druid lost all of their friends, right?
Yeah.
And Talia has to go on this crazy, journey where she has to like be the reincarnation of the Night Mother, if I'm correct. Is that that's what's happening, right?
Yeah, close enough. Yeah, something like that.
Basically, right? They've already spilled so much blood. This is like, it's like pretty tiring to be like, yeah, I guess we'll just continue on this selfless journey for, no-name higher-ups. Just like
people they haven't even seen in like a month yet.
Exactly, right? That's a lot to go. And I mean, I guess that's kind of the whole shtick of being an adventure. Like but also, I thought it was really cool that like the Randy Copperfoot, the bard, who's based off of,
Johnny Silverhand.
Johnny Silverhands, right? Like he had a very cyberpunk ending. He got arrested, and he's like, and it's just like so funny. I was like, oh, this is actually just like cyberpunk.
Something like that. So yeah, that was so we're at this point, the players for Randy Copperfoot and for Edgar Ordric, the other human fighter, were going to be playing new characters that we would get into. But the session started off with Valzana and Talia, and I just want to get in on like how they were feeling in the moment. Valzana was still a bit angry about how things went down, but very excited to be acquiring these zones, and Talia was feeling very ambitious. They did have a lead that they could work with because of some investigating they had already done, and I did give them this big old fast travel portal chamber, which is just like, you walk through it and you'll end up close to where you're supposed to end up, connected to a portal on the other end. But you have to activate the portal on the other end so you can come back to the central point of the network. Just to speed up travel a bit, because I didn't want them to have to like walk the whole time, because I wanted to like... This campaign's been going on pretty long, and there's like a whole lot of threads and stuff, and there's a lot of loose threads, I should say, and not enough getting orbs.
Yeah, a lot of sewer notes, not enough actual like proper main storyline stuff getting done.
Yeah. So I was like, here's some fast travel points, here's some ideas of where to look for stuff. Let's see if we could get a move on, because I didn't want to drag things out too long. If that makes sense. Like, I'm enjoying the story. It's just that it's longer than it should be because we keep doing other things. So I was like,
That's true. I mean, it's basically like 5 dungeons you actually have to commit to, right? Yeah. And it's like, and then getting to those 5 dungeons, it was like a pretty, to be fair, like the whole campaign's like a pretty chill setup, right? Like it just seems to be like 5 acts, every act capstoning, clearing a dungeon, and then, you know, there's like the final one, right? So like maybe 6 of whatever nonsense happens after you collect all of them. But yeah, it's been a lot of drama. Drama City, man.
True. I feel like if I restarted this campaign now with the experience I have now, it would not be at 40 sessions with like 2 orbs.
But I mean, that's a Captain Fun. I'm sure players are like, man, I could do this forever.
Yeah, like everyone's like enjoying the game still and like making characters and playing them and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. I feel like this went on too long. I feel like it would be interesting to like take these players and then do other kinds of stories. But I don't want to leave this unfinished.
Yeah, this is the problem with campaigns, right? It's like, you know, you always want to try and finish a campaign, but if it's not like a written adventure, there's actually no end, right? So you can drag it out forever, and then sometimes like player groups dissolve, or like, you know, you kind of just move on to other things, so those stories kind of get left behind. But I mean, there's also kind of something fun about that a little bit to me. It makes me like happy that, like, you know, we'll just go on and do something else. These characters can just like, we can just make up whatever happened afterwards. Yeah. So, you know, we don't have to worry about it or revisit it later or whatever, right? So, yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at. So my plan was to speed things up and then get to the end, but and then like what I wanted was just to deal with like, here's the main quest, and then if there's any side stuff, it's gonna be like personal stuff, not just random things I thought were cool at some point and then I have to deal with.
Sure.
So yeah, they had a lead, they had some fast travel. They just needed to get out of the guild building first without being noticed. So they used the invisibility sphere spell, and like if they move slowly and stick together, like if they're not in combat, they can be invisible within like I think 10-foot space. And yeah, I just had some NPCs roll a search check for them, which, because they were invisible, it was like a flat check of like 50%, and then the NPC still got a chance to roll a perception check, but like failed by like 1, so they were able to get out of there pretty clear.
Nice.
But in the meantime, 2 other mysterious people whose threads of fate may suddenly intertwine were coincidentally outside the building. So this is where the 2 new characters were. One of them being Cass, a human magus, or magus. I think it's magus. I don't know, but
I say magus, so that's just whatever the easiest one it is to say for you. Just say it.
I think magus is easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cass, a human magus, this older-looking elf who's wearing like a very nice breastplate, nice cloak, matching boots with a brown and green trim, and a very expensive-looking sword, and his companion Byron, who is fully cloaked, hiding his plate armor and his face. If someone were to get a good look, they could see reddish eyes poking out from underneath his hood and his half-covered face. And if they were to get a really close look, they would notice that Byron, this champion of an evil deity, is in fact a skeleton.
Ooh! Oh! Whoa! Cool. Did Byron live? I'm excited.
I gotta say, it is rough out there for a skeleton. If you need healing, if you need stabilizing, you ain't gonna get it.
Oh, dude, that's true. I guess everything's the opposite for you.
Yep. You can't even stabilize a skeleton. You can't use the stabilize spell, which we found out very dramatically.
So then how do you get a skeleton back up? I guess You don't? I don't know why. I don't know why I think they just come back automatically for some reason. I was like, I think some video game nonsense is getting into my head. I was like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, the skeletons will just come back after like 3 turns. Oh, you know what it is? I've been playing a lot of Tactics Ogre, Reforged, and that game, all of the undead people, they just come back after 3 turns, and it's hella annoying.
No such luck here. But yeah, these two are members of the Unliving Hand, which is this undead, like, group of partially necromancers, partially undead, all of them who sort of come together under the awareness that necromancy is rather frowned upon in normal society, and groups like the Adventurers Guild have been working to actively eliminate any traces of undead. Typically like zombies and that kind of like shambling, unintelligent undead, but there are intelligent undead who would rather that also not happen to them.
True.
So Byron is more of a direct member, Cass is more like hired mercenary, and they've been tasked with finding this group that they've come across, that the Hand has come across a couple of times at this point, who they know is actively looking for this powerful object for the Adventurers Guild. And the Hand wants to keep the crown out of the hands of the guild. Because if the guild is more powerful, then more adventurers are going to be killing more undead. So that was sort of the premise that they had to work with. And I had to find a way to get these two things together. I kind of had the same thing to deal with in the couple of last sessions that I ran for 2 different campaigns.
Yeah, always like adding in new characters. It's like always a problem.
Yeah, especially to an ongoing story.
Challenge. Yeah.
But yeah, so they were aware of everything that had gone on with the party recently, that they had been split up, and that 2 of them were pretty much under guard, but another 2 were within the guild building. So they had a discussion on what to do next. When Byron admitted that Cass was more the brains of the operation, I think Byron's intelligence score is perhaps below average.
I love that the skeleton's like, yeah, he's got the brains, because I'm a skeleton. That's a pretty good joke.
Yep. So they were figuring out what to do, but they were able to roll a decent enough perception check to notice that something unseeable left the building. So they were figuring out what to do next while Talia and Valzana were making their way out. It was really actually Byron that noticed the door kind of took a moment longer to close than it should have. But he assumed it was something wrong with the door, although he did mention it to Cass, who was able to figure out that it could be a magical thing instead. Byron wanted to just go in there, swinging his weapon around to see if it would hit anything. And this is when he showed off the weapon that he had, which is something that I did not know existed, but it is a Dwarven Dorndagar, which is... It's basically a huge block of metal on the end of a chain that you can swing around.
Oh, okay. It's like a flail, but just a wrecking ball. He just is a wrecking ball.
Pretty much. And it's cool as hell, but damn, like, it's a very simple design for a weapon, but it is very cool. So yeah. Between the 2 of them, they were able to pick up more signs of something invisible as Talia and Valzana were moving into an alley to drop the sphere. But Cass and Byron were able to spot them and catch up with them. And then this is the part where they start to have that discussion, because Valzana is paranoid as she thinks the guild is trying to follow. So she's like readying her bow as these guys show up. So Byron rushes in, swinging his weapon and saying, "We're here to help."
Why is he swinging his weapon? That seems like the opposite.
Right? So, yeah, Valzana's asking, like, who are you working for? And Cass is just deflecting, saying it's not important, but pointing out the troubles that the team is in. Talia tried to get everybody untasked by saying that there's no time to actually have this conversation. They have to get out of the city. Cass would be able to help in exchange for, some information. And Byron also mentioned that they have resources the party could use. My intention was that the Hand would be able to provide, like, access to equipment that the Adventurers Guild wouldn't normally be able to. I've kind of been treating the
Right.
Adventurers Guild as like middlemen for tasks, like a hiring agency, basically.
Yeah.
And I wanted the hand to have more of like direct access to resources and assistance for people who are working with them.
Oh man, I can't believe you call it the Hand. I was gonna call my secret organization the Hand, but I guess that every secret organization is actually called the Hand.
In all honesty, I actually have I have two organizations that had "and" in the name, and I didn't realize until I was like, because I was trying to find a place for these new players, so I was going through my notes of like, what other organizations do I have in this game? And I had the Unliving Hand from a while back, but also in the Fateseer game, I had Alina's bandit group was originally called the Viper's Hand. Just because I thought it would be funny as an idea, like, because snakes don't have hands. But then as I was putting things together, I was like, oh my god, I did this twice.
Hands, the dark hands, the red hands, the bloody hands.
Yeah,
That's okay. I also have the same problem with like Fang. I want to put Fang at the end of everything. Like it's like, yeah, the Viper's Fang, the White Fang. You know what I mean? So yeah, coming up with names are hard. So I totally get that.
I feel like these organizations, if they meet each other, they're gonna have an argument over branding.
The hands clash at sunset. Only two hands go in, one hand walks out.
They're just arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Or I guess thumb wrestling would be more appropriate.
Oh man, dude, that's so funny. Well, you could just call him the Undying. I think that's just drop the hands part.
Nah, they were first, so I don't know. Maybe Alina's group will change their name. We'll see.
Oh, you know what it should be? The Alina's group should just get into trouble. Like people think that they're the Undying Hand, but like they're actually just like the Viper's End. It's like you got the wrong hand, gang.
Oh, maybe. That'd be a fun little twist. Yeah, I think I'll put that in my notes. Maybe I'll do that. But yeah, they were able to, at least at this point, they agreed that they all needed to get out of the city. So I had them roll just a skill challenge to escape out of the city. It went pretty smoothly for the most part. Byron did get momentarily stuck in a crowd, but Valzana, or no, sorry, no, I think it was Talia that was able to help him get out of there. And by the time they get out, once they got out of the city, they had more of a actual discussion on who everyone was and what they can do next. Valzana was very curious about how Byron became undead, but at this point, he didn't know how or exactly who he was. But he did reveal that he had a mixture of human and dwarven bones, which is an interesting idea. And yeah, they were also figuring out if they should work together, because Valzana kind of wanted the power for herself, and Cass was wondering exactly what she would do with that power. She did also reveal that they had the blue orb, and yeah, basically just Cass and Byron are figuring out how to do their job with the hand. Talia and Valzana are figuring out, what they can do to acquire the rest of these orbs. Talia was also nervous about working with someone whose allegiances she wasn't entirely sure about, because Cass is, again, just working for hire. But they did eventually settle on working together for the time being. And Valzana also had some leftover Carlisle Crackle candies, which she shared with the two new members of the party.
Interesting.
So yeah, at this point, we were just getting into some travel stuff. I had a significant fight plan, so I didn't want to do too much travel stuff, so I was going to just do like one thing and maybe just summarize the rest of the journey. However, I didn't realize how intense this thing was going to get. Basically on their first day, they came across a cart that was moving towards them. It was like a blacksmith and his assistant that used to work in a town called Greydrift, which the party had passed through recently, and it had been attacked by like these extraplanar dream monsters. So essentially they had put their stuff together after the town had been attacked, and they were moving it into the larger city to try to start a business there.
Yeah.
So they were heading in the opposite direction of the party, who was heading southwards. And as they were passing by, Byron's keen eye noticed a valuable weapon in the cart. Then this is when the evil knob started to be cranked a bit higher, as he stopped the cart, intimidating the driver, and it seemed like he wanted to just like rob the cart itself. Until Byron asked for. Okay, so this is something that caught me by surprise with undead, is that apparently they can or like skeletons at least, is that apparently they don't need to eat necessarily, but they can consume bones to like regrow parts of themselves. So
Okay.
Byron asked this blacksmith for a source of bones in Greydrift, and he was confused, and I was confused. Because apparently Byron didn't have like a bunch of like enough rations on him anyways, so he needed like something to actually eat as well.
Right.
So yeah, he was just like, I don't know, the morgue probably. And yeah, this kind of went on for a bit. The guy was trying to like get out of there. He was very intimidated by everyone around. Cass was like moving around to the other side of the cart, kind of losing his patience somewhat. So yeah, while Byron is talking to the driver, the assistant guy in the cart was about to reach for one of the swords, which Cass kind of, he like teleported directly next to him, just sort of, you know, to dissuade him from doing just that. And yeah, at a certain point, they were going to try to get away, but then I think it was either Byron or Cass who had like attack of opportunity and then used it on the cart itself. Which I was like, sure, fine, whatever. It was definitely enough to like smash the cart wheel and get it to stop. And then the guy in the back, he went for a weapon. He tried, but he was pretty easily taken down by Cass. And then Byron just took out the driver, which was surprising.
Huh. Bad guys be batting, I guess.
Apparently. And then yeah, Volzana got to work on repairing the cart, because now with that they would be able to move faster. And Talia was able to identify the particular magic weapon that this blacksmith was carrying. And I was curious how those two were feeling with their new companions. And like Talia wasn't really feeling guilty, but kind of annoyed at the time that was wasted. And Volzana felt like the effort that was spent wasn't really worth the reward, because the weapon was... It was an alright weapon. It wasn't bad. It was like a hammer with, I think, +1 and crushing, I want to say.
Okay.
Which isn't too bad. I mean, you take the ring out of that and still use it, but yeah, they didn't really feel like it was worth the effort. And I was like, ooh.
Oh man, this is the darkest timeline.
I know.
Oh no. What had happened to our heroes? But had fallen so far.
Right? So yeah, at that point, they did camp out. They caught up with notes for a bit. Basically, Cass as well sent a message to the Undying Hand, just as an update of like what was going on with the party, how half of them were arrested and the other two were no longer with the guild. He also, because Byron was there, so it was also like that Byron says hi.
Yeah.
Which was the most important part of the message. And the response that he received was basically just like to stay with these two for the time being, because essentially like the hand, for the most part, they want to keep the orbs out of the guild's hands. But additionally, like, every discussion of what to do with them is sort of a moot point until they're actually acquired. So they're basically like, just stay with them until they're actually acquired, because then like there's no point in worrying about what else to do with them if you don't even have them in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get some rest. Apparently Byron has some very intense night terrors, which Talia was vaguely interested in, because that sort of aligns with her whole deal, but not interested enough to actually ask.
I thought Baron needs to sleep. He thought it was a skeleton.
I don't know why he has nightmares, but apparently he does. I think he just needs like a few hours of meditation or something like that. Like not 8 hours of rest, but like maybe 4 or so hours of something. I would have to look at
Oh,
it
okay.
again, but I think he's just used to like not be doing stuff for a few hours. And apparently during
Makes
that
sense,
time, he has
okay.
nightmares.
Oh, okay. How nice.
So yeah, that whole thing with the blacksmith took a bit longer than expected. So I just kind of summarized the next 4 days of travel, and then they arrived at Kelna's Keep, where the portal is, and that just so happened to align with like the new year, according to the in-game calendar. So basically, New Year's Eve is when this new party arrived at the keep and was ready to get going on finding the next orb, which is, I mean, we'll see how we'll see how things go with that. I just thought it was interesting timing. But yeah, so at this point, they head into the keep. They have like a way to get directly to the portal chamber, and then from there, they have ways to go all around the continent. They got more information on how the portals worked from the automaton assistant that essentially lives within there. And he just basically told them the same thing. Like, once you go through the portal, you may have to deal with certain creatures who may have been altered by the, like, trans-dimensional magics of the portal. But if you can activate the portal from the other end, you'll be able to walk through that end back to the main chamber. Again, fast travel.
Got you. Beat the fast travel checkpoint boss, and you can hop back and forth between there. Makes sense.
Literally that. So yeah, my intention, because they kept talking about wanting to get to level 9, so I was like, okay, we'll get you guys to level 9.
Oh no, Calvin, no. No.
I appreciate you saw my mistake right away. No, I was like, well, here's a big old thing you guys can fight. It's gonna have a pretty obvious weakness. I assumed they had like a bunch of health potions and stuff because they had opportunities to just like shop for stuff, and no one needed to shop for anything. So I was like, okay, I'm sure you guys have all the health potions or whatever that you need. The dice just weren't cooperating that day.
I was also gonna say, I think it's also kind of tough with a new party dynamic to throw a challenging encounter at them. It's like you gotta like, you know,
Go loosen them up first.
Yeah, loosen them up first before they dive into something serious, because like, you know, people, you know, they're not used to fighting together. Right?
Hey, they loosened up on that blacksmith.
Well, I mean, like, all right, I guess if you want to count that.
That was worth like 5 XP.
Jeez, man.
So yeah, essentially where they went is through the red portal that led into this lava chamber. It was essentially like a cave with lava flowing through it, pooling in the center before draining out elsewhere. And when they arrived there, Valzana was able to notice some strange markings on a nearby wall, but the rest of the party was able to see that there was a creature that was sort of hovering up from within the lava pool. And from there, they saw this massive fire elemental. Then things basically kicked off from that point. And they started off doing pretty well, to be honest. Because Valzana has a spell that essentially summons like this cold storm. And you have to roll a save to avoid damage from it. But you take automatic damage from being in it. And it's cold damage, and this thing has like weakness to cold damage. So
Nice.
They cut through like the first half of its health pretty handily. It's just at that point, then the dice decided to stop working with them.
So it's that karma. It's the karma for the cart, dog.
You might be correct. So this thing has some pretty strong abilities, including an Inferno Leap, which is basically like it leaps up to a distance, up to its speed, and then when it lands, it lets out a burst of fire, and then it can't use the Inferno Leap for another D4 number of rounds. So I only got a couple of those in, but it did get some
Couple. You just dive bomb them, explode. You're like, yes, I've only done this 4 times.
Well, because I had to roll a D4, and the D4 wasn't very happy with me. But yeah, he was able to bounce in, do damage to the party. Byron did have some elemental protection that was given to him from Cass, so he was reducing all that damage he was taking. Everybody else was just like rolling saves, trying to avoid damage in the first place. I'm just going over like for people at home. I don't have specific notes here because I was kind of getting into the combat, so I'm just going over the rolls that everyone was making as things were going on, including some dimensional assaults and stuff coming from Cass. Magus is a class that I haven't had a ton of experience with, but I like the couple of times I've seen it played. Just the teleporting behind someone, the nothing personal kid before doing damage to them, I really enjoy.
You're already dead. Like, that's pretty cool. I'm glad that they made that class better in 2. Yeah, I used to play one back in regular Pathfinder, first edition Pathfinder, and it was more like that class. The way I played it, I guess, was more of like a put everything into one big move and just like attack somebody and explode and cast a spell all at the same time and like do a bunch of stuff in one go. But I'm glad that like you feel like a cool teleporting swords person. Like that sounds way cooler.
Yeah, man, I'm really into it. I think I might have to. I gotta focus because if I get distracted by all the things I want to play, I'm not gonna be able to play my kineticist.
You'll never be able to live that Avatar dream.
I know. And yeah, they were getting some uses of abilities in there. Byron had something cool, Destructive Vengeance, which is triggered when an enemy hits you. Essentially, you take a d6 of damage, and you can deal a d6 of damage to the enemy. And he had a thing that boosted that to 2d6 on the enemy, and 1d6 on himself.
Cool.
So yeah, he was able to like reflexively hit this thing. And yeah, the battle was going back and forth, but they did end up having some trouble with the storms that Valzana was putting down. Because while they could cause damage, they also like concealed the creature. So you had to make a flat check, so it was just a d20 roll of DC 5. So just roll a d20, get 5 or higher.
Oh no.
And you would be surprised how many times that failed.
Oh no, the DC 5 got him.
It is wacky how many times that failed. Especially, and more importantly, for attacks that did cold damage, which is a lot of what they needed here. So, by the end of it, the creature is at like a quarter of its HP, but the party is still kind of struggling. Talia is staying away and keeping her distance because she doesn't want to get caught up in this. But what's more of an issue, and then this is one of the more tense parts. This is probably one of the most tense situations that I've ended up running. Is that at one point Valzana was taken down by a critical hit.
Oh no!
You know where that's
classic. The classic 1 and 2 1. Like...
So I think we've explained how dying works with Pathfinder a billion times. You have a dying value. If it gets to 4, you die. You make checks each round to see if your value goes up by 1 or down by 1 based on your success on that check. So because she got down by a crit, she went to dying 2 right away. However, this creature had a couple of important abilities, one of them being a damaging aura that came from it, that at the end of someone's turn, if they were within the aura, it would do a little bit of damage to them, based on a reflex save. The other being that it has some persistent damage when it lands a melee attack. It's like not a ton of persistent damage, it's like a little bit, like 1 or 2d6, I want to say.
Right.
But the issue was that Valzana went down to one of these melee attacks. So she essentially had persistent damage on her that would go off automatically unless something was done to prevent it. And she was also within the radius of this creature and would receive damage if she didn't make the save. She couldn't make the save because she was unconscious and prone.
Right.
So essentially, once something takes a creature down in Pathfinder, but it goes to dying, that creature's turn moves to right before the thing that took it down. So you basically have a round to save this person if you want to do so. And the rest of the party essentially had a round to save Valzana before she got hit by the essentially the automatic damage from persistent damage and the automatic damage from being in the radius, which would both be enough to, because once you take damage, your dying value increases by 1, and those are going to go off automatically.
Yeah, so it just ticked twice and then she's dead.
Yeah, basically. But they did manage to do so. Between Byron and a hasted cast, they were able to like pull her out of there and pat out the fire. And Valzana was able to actually make her save. And then she got a healing potion like poured down her throat. And I thought they would be okay. But as things were going on, eventually, Byron goes down, Cass goes down, Valzana ended up going down again. They had to deal with that persistent damage. They had to deal with the radius thing. The creature was moving away, trying to reach Talia, but Talia had spent like most of the combat like moving basically, so she was pretty far away from this thing. It definitely out of its range. So even though Valzana was able to notice where the other end of the portal was meant to be, and she was able to spend an action to activate it, she wasn't able to get back through.
Oh, okay.
So to sort of summarize a lengthy and desperate combat, we ended up with Byron, Cass, and Valzana, the last original member from the very first session, down. Talia was able to get away, and as she was making her way up through this cave that the lava pool was in, she ended up running into, and this is what I thought they were going to deal with when they got here. She ended up running into this young teenage half-orc who had apparently heard what was going on from another cave tunnel network up like higher up, and had come down to see this fire creature and was like hiding back and scared. And he was going to try to make an escape with Talia, and that was a whole other thing that I was actually going to deal with while they were here. But now more immediately we have to deal with what to do with the party at this point. Because there was meant to be like an ongoing story here related to the orb itself.
Right.
But we'll come back to that. And yeah, we were just trying to figure out, because I wasn't super happy with the roles that ended up happening and how the combat turned out. And partially, I guess I could have given them a weaker creature to fight. But to be honest, I still, to this moment, think they could have won this fight. Like, it was pretty rough, but I still think it was doable. In all honesty, I still think it was completely doable, because with the damage they were doing and the spells, like the stuff they were putting out, they got this thing down pretty low. And even the regular damage they were doing was significant enough to like really hurt this creature. Like, I still think they could have beat it. I know it was pretty tough, but I still think they could have beat it, if I'm being completely honest. I like, especially those, once you fail more than one DC 5 flat check, I think that just means the universe has decided luck is not on your side today.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, also, I think that the fire elemental is a weird, like, edge case where it's like, yeah, it might be appropriate for the level, but I think that just because of the combination of, like, the 1-2 punch, if you could just kill somebody, like, outright because of the all the tick damage, I think that's, like, actually a lot harder than it leads on to be, right? Because that basically, like, you're like one crit away from, and if you're isolated from the party, you're like one crit away from dying. Like, if you go down, there's a high chance that you're not going to make it standing next to this thing. And this thing is a melee combatant. It's big. It's one of those brawler things. You just park it in front of it, that character's going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's an entirely fair analysis. Especially as it was proven true with Valzana. They did get pretty lucky in saving her, because they essentially had like one round to do so, and they still managed to do it. There's certainly obviously mathematically this fight could have definitely gone the worst possible way for them. I just had a bit more faith in the dice than that, but things just didn't work out that way.
That's true, and obviously you have the issue of playing online, so you can't just be like, oh, it has half the amount of HP now, or like, oh, it has, you got to that halfway point, you see that they're struggling a little bit, you're gonna be like, the rest of the HP, it's fine, it doesn't need to be there, right? Right? But playing online sucks, because it's like, oh, it's It's there. You know.
Yeah. Ramon, are you suggesting
Yes.
I fudge?
Yes, that was a. I mean, you already got the climactic part, right? The last PC from the original party is down and dying. They had to do everything in their power to rescue him. It was already a dramatic moment. What more do you need out of this thing?
What? Me fudge? I would never.
I guess so. I mean,
I might.
that's
but...
just. Yeah, that's just my opinion. Anyway, it's like it was like a. Like it was like, do I honor the bones or do I save my story? Like these are the questions, right?
Yeah.
Although the bones are pretty fickle, so it's like tough. If you deny them too much, they're like, nah, man.
Yeah, I think I've gotten too used to like not feeling a need to fudge the dice. That like when a situation where I probably should have or definitely should have comes up, then I'm just like, no, it'll be fine. The dice will come around, and they did not. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, so what's the plan then? Are you guys? I guess everyone has to decide how the story's gonna go forward, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say in retrospect, I should have made just like 2 creatures that were enough to get them to the next level, to like 2 or 3 smaller ones, because the individual blows of this thing were pretty rough. Yeah. Even though as a party they could have done enough damage to take it down, it could also do enough damage to significantly take actually take someone out. So that's probably a balancing for later. I think, yeah, in retrospect, should have been multiple creatures that they could have done enough damage to each one individually. But as far as what happens next, like what I wanted to like for me, I kind of want to just like bring these characters back, and I had some ideas of how to do so, and then just continue from there. There's discussion of like if we want to have new characters completely, because Valzana's player hasn't gotten to play anything else in Pathfinder,
right?
Which was
it's just been straight druid for like, I don't know, years now. So.
Yeah, in 2 different games, which was having that pointed out to me, I was like, yeah, that's kind of unfair to this person because everybody else has gotten at least 2. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing. Yeah.
It'll be kind of cool too because like, you know, who has the orb is the only person who has the orb actually right now.
Oh, I mean, it's in the cave still because it was in Valzana's bag.
Yeah, dude, like, I mean, that would be a cool place to just leave it. That would be like the funniest thing. Like you just update your notes being like, where's the other orb? You'd be like inside of the fire transport room. Right? And like the players know that, but the actual party doesn't. And it's like, who knows who will find the tower since then and like go back. Like, I think it'd be kind of cool to just like leave it there. And then like if they do end up making like a new party, like eventually they have to go and recover it. So
yeah, it would be weird for the blue orb that's like not themed to be here to be in the red fire area, but it could be. That's just where it is. Yeah, there was this like I wanted to just revive the party. There was discussion of like the fight was actually one of Byron's nightmares, which is pretty funny.
That's a good way of just retconning it.
I do kind of like that one. There was talk of like starting with new characters, but at like a lower level. I don't think you'd want to go all the way back to level 1. Like part of me was like, oh, it would be kind of interesting to go back down to a lower level, but I don't know that people would want to go all the way to level 1. I think like 3 maybe, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably start off like a whole new, like, I mean, if like a suggestion could be like, you know, there's another adventuring party going after another, just put them on the road to just get another orb for the adventuring guild, right? Like just immediately be like, oh yeah, cut down to B team, and it's like all these jabrones, and they're like, you know, just start them off being like, yeah, we're right in front of the dungeon or whatever, versus where the orb is. It's like while A team gets their teeth kicked in, it's like, this is B team. They're having a better time, maybe.
Pretty much. Like, yeah, I was just have to figure out, like, do they work for the Adventurers Guild or do they work for the Unliving Hand? Because, or are they work for someone else? Maybe they work for the Viper's Hand.
That'd be the funniest thing. Just a bunch of crooks.
But yeah, we gotta figure that out. We gotta figure out what to do with like the one character that got away. Because I don't like. I would like to come back to these characters. I would like to come back to Byron and Cass because they were pretty new. I'd like to come back to Talia and Valzana because they were on like a new arc. But at the same time, again, like I don't want Valzana's player to be like stuck playing the same kind of character the whole time. But also, like the character could retire and not have to die. So, you know, there's ways to deal with that.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I also I don't know if Talia's character wants to continue being Talia. Seems kind of stressful.
True. But Talia being alive, she could end up being an NPC, perhaps a villainous one.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I think that if anything, she could probably come back, or maybe she's like the, even secret or awesome better idea is that Talia is the other like a third party organization, because you know she's level 8, right? She's pretty powerful and also like the scion of a dark deity, right?
Yeah.
And she could definitely organize a bunch of adventurers to go do something for her. So maybe like Talia becomes the new boss that the players report to, and the players now, you know, are gonna like the first thing that they do is go and fight that goddamn fire elemental and reclaim that orb because you know exactly where it is.
Maybe that. I mean, yeah, that is an idea. I couldn't decide, and I kind of wanted to come to a consensus with the players of where they would want to go, and then from there, I would make up my mind of like, how do we do this narratively? Are we starting with new people? Are we continuing with these guys? Was it a nightmare, and is there something different in this cave? I would prefer the option that keeps the same group, but I also like the idea of starting with new characters. Because if we do that, then it's easier for me to, again, drop some of these loose threads that we have dangling. Because there's stuff that, like, I was really interested in dealing with at the time, and I'm still interested in dealing with it, but it's like, that's gonna be a distraction from completing the main quest. Like, I had a whole thing with an android a while ago that we haven't gotten to deal with.
Oh my gosh, the android side story. You have to like fight them while it's raining on top of a roof.
Of course.
Jeez, man. All right, well, hopefully your players, whatever your players decide or you guys come up with, it'll be awesome because this is a pretty cool campaign.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I like playing with these people. I like playing in this group, and they're so far, and I certainly hope continuing to do so far enjoying it. So I'm sure we'll figure out something that everybody likes. Yeah, we'll just have to have that actual discussion and see what people end up wanting to do. Because at the end of the day, as long as I'm still playing with this group of people, then I don't think it really matters. We're all going to have fun together anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of where things are right now. And I guess in the future, we'll see if I redo this combat. We'll see if we start with new characters, or we'll see if it was one big old nightmare. I think nightmare idea is very fun.
Just the mad dreams of an undead skeleton man.
Like I genuinely like that, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
All right, cool.
All right, and yeah, I guess for now that's where the Crown of Dragons campaign is sitting. Yeah, again, it was just one of those things that didn't work out the way I had expected it to. And part of me would like a second chance at it, perhaps a different kind of fight against different kinds of creatures, or just different leveled creatures. But I certainly want to, do something that we can all agree on. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely tough to have. I find that when you go to the higher ends of like the monster, I guess, range for your level, it gets really swingy. Mm-hmm. More likely that the monster will beat up the party pretty bad, like just because of the nature of the crits and stuff like that. It's like, those higher levels definitely are more significant than anything. Which, I mean, that's totally fine if you want to play that way, but just be prepared to wipe the floor with your party sometimes.
I mean, clearly I am. I don't know. I feel like I act too blasé about killing characters because I actually really don't like when that happens. But I'm just.
But you've killed so many more characters than me. I think that's the funniest part. Like I've only killed like one character. I actually think I've only killed like one character. And
I never thought that was the case because when we play in person, you have this one guy that you call the PC killer, and the whole time I was like, oh god, how many lives? How many people has this one D20 taken?
It's all a charade, man. That's the whole point of GMing. Like you play off all the nonsense. You're like the Wizard of Oz. It's all smoke and mirrors. I plan very meticulously and lie a lot to make the danger seem real, but it's not real.
That was honestly the funniest thing, like learning that. Because like genuinely for years before I found that out, I was like, because I didn't even know, because I never even asked. I was always like, there's gotta be like, however, like so many. It has to be multiple for it to be the PC killer. What do we do?
What do we do? Jokes. It was just because it looked kind of scary. I also love threatening my players because it's because I'm a big combat guy, so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure if I just throw this big monster at them, like it'll be fine. But I balance it out because I arm them with nukes, so it's like I don't know. I think most of my players are overpowered anyway, and that's why I'm able to throw higher stuff at them, or I'll just fudge the dice. Like it's like, I mean, I would say there are consequences. Like I don't do it like as often, but definitely like I always arm my players a little bit too much, and I always, if something's really gonna throw off my story, like I'll definitely be like, I'll take off a couple points of HP and be like, this fight will end sooner. Because I don't want tragedy to strike in the middle of a random encounter or something like that.
Right.
That's not the game I want to play. So
mayhaps I should break open the fudge more than I do, which is, I don't know. I can't remember the last time I fudged super hard. I also don't want to like reveal it because I don't want to like break that immersion.
Yeah, exactly. And like the whole point is like, yeah, I say that now, but nobody will ever know, right? Nobody knows anything, right? Like, it's just one of those things where it comes down to just another tool in your GM tool belt, right? Sometimes you believe when you roll you invoke the bones and you just say like, yeah, whatever happens, kid. And sometimes you're like, I think this is dramatic enough. I'm good. Like.
I don't know, maybe. I'll think about it.
12 dead PCs later, I've learned nothing.
Yep. Oh, no, that would be too sad.
The problem is eventually your players are going to stop putting effort into their characters because they're going to be like, oh, Calvin's is going to kill this one.
Ooh, I don't want that at all. Yeah, no. If a character is gonna die, it's gonna be an actual important fight. It's not gonna be against a thing that was guarding a portal.
It's true. You should have the hand come and resurrect those dudes as zombies or something. That would be pretty funny.
Maybe.
just send like their dude with a cart to be like, all right, these guys, bring them back down.
Yeah, I mean,
to the lab and. Yeah, and then they wake up like RoboCop style, be like, "We built you better," and some of them have like 5 arms or something.
Harder, better, faster, stronger. Yeah, I mean, what better way to get someone indebted to you, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, that one guy had like different bones in him. That'd be hilarious. Just be like, "All right, now you guys are all Frankenstein monsters."
God.
Look how far you've fallen.
Maybe, yeah, that's something we're thinking about. Well, it's going to depend on how, what sort of consensus people come to. If they want to keep playing these same characters, then I just got to figure out the how, and yeah, see what people end up liking. But yeah, that's where the party is at currently.
True.
I think one day we need to have like a fudge discussion, and we're gonna have to like tell our players not to listen.
But the truth, the dark secret that really GMing is all lies.
Because I think you're obviously like 100 times more flexible with that than I am, but I'm not above using it. I just haven't I haven't done it in a way that I would call significant for a while. There might be a couple of times where I was just like, yeah, that'll probably work, so I'm not going to worry too much about the specifics, but I don't know if the last time I fudged HP.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like I, like, you know.
Oh, no,
like
I know you don't do it,
recommend...
like, all the, like, frequently
yeah.
or whatever, but, like...
Yeah, no, I do it also to just end fights.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes dudes have, like, 5 or 6 HP,
Yeah,
and, you know, everyone's throwing around, like, I do 30 damage, and I'm like, all right, it's just, you just have the change left over. Like, it's not that bad. Like, he's dead. Like, like I'll do the math, and at the end, it's like, you know, I just like, oh yeah, it's pretty close. It's a pretty dramatic hit. They're like, yeah, I critted him, and then it's like, you know, you have like 2 HP, and you're like, that's a little dumb. He's dead.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's fine. Like,
gosh, when was the last time I did that? I cannot remember. I know there was definitely one time that I did it that I keep bringing up and then never explaining. And perhaps one day I will.
Well, I mean, I don't know, old school D&D, like, you used to have to roll for your, like, it used to be like the like the actual listed, like the they would have hit die and the actual HP listed, and the HP listed was the average of the hit die. So like if something had 4 HP, it would be like, it would have a D8 hit die, 1D8 hit die. So then it was like, you could theoretically roll anywhere between 1 to an 8 for every creature that has a 1D hit die. So I was like, okay, if that's kind of the idea that they originally started with, then yeah, I can shave off a couple of bits of HP here and there, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I'm totally with that. Like, well, yeah, I totally get why you would do that. I think I just like numbers too much.
Kevin plays the truth, all right? He lives and dies by the bones, man.
But at the end of the day, our games are still fun. And that's the important part.
Yeah, true. Yeah, well, I guess that's the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, if our listeners out there are interested in, you know, hearing this fudge discussion, this GM only discussion, because everything that happens back here is real. But if people are interested in hearing that, we can get into it. I do really want to get into the topic because I think it's very interesting, like balancing the mechanics of a game versus an interesting story. And yeah, maybe that is something we can get into if you want to hear more about that. If you want to hear more about the campaigns that we talk about, definitely hit that subscribe button. And yeah, check out all the stuff that we've got going on. If you're into gaming streams, definitely check out the past few live streams from the channel. Took a bit of a break, but by the time you're hearing this, I should be back on schedule with Dead Space at least. And then we'll figure stuff out. I might take a break from Sims for a bit. But I guess by the time you hear this, you will know what I decide.
Yeah, true.
In addition, if you're into the Lancer RPG, we've got a whole bunch of third-party Lancer content creators linked below. So definitely check all of them out, including Field Guide to Mfukane, and all of Shaka's other work, like all the other streams. And Ramon, you were in fact on a Shaka stream recently.
Yeah, I was. All I know is that dude makes really good NPCs, and I was very impressed and very scared. I was like, what is this, man? Yeah. So yeah, it was super awesome. Definitely loved playing in Shaka's game and with all the cool people at Ukua Station. That was awesome.
Yeah. It was streamed on YouTube, so hopefully I can find a link, and I will put the link below if I'm able to. If not, I'll just link to the channel in general. So yeah, you should definitely check out the channel anyways. So yeah, if you're into Lancer, definitely check that out. If you're into Mutants and Masterminds, I would recommend the Untold Stories Project, where I'm at on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and their Mutants and Mastermind streams, including Freedom League Dark and Gemstars, which are barreling towards a crossover for the Gemstars finale. So very excited to see how that goes. I don't think it's going to be like the massive dozen-player crossovers they've done before, but I think it'll be a bit more scaled down, like a mixture of the two teams. Which I think would be equally interesting, because then we get to have more personal dynamic stuff.
I was gonna say, I always like that everything always comes down to a crossover event on that channel. You guys' all you guys' games. It's so funny. I was just like, the big crossover event, and I'm like, I keep thinking about like the CW Flash.
Right?
It's always like, but the funniest part, I never used to watch any of the other shows. I would only watch like the CW Flash. So you'd get like this weird kind of like, Flash Gordon effect where it's like, oh yeah, you just get the whatever portion of it that happened in the CW Flash's show, and then it just all gets resolved, and you're like, oh, sick.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be super weird for people who are just like watching one stream show.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, Barry, it's just like that last time we killed all these aliens in the other black and white dimension. And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, what? Back when we were cartoons, man, like.
Yeah, basically like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to see more of that stuff, definitely check out their channel. They also have a discount code for a partnership with Norse Foundry. So if you're interested in getting some new dice, if you want to feed your dice addiction, definitely check them out and get the discount code from there. But I think that's all we've got for now. Ramon, anything else you want to say before we head off?
I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, for all of our burning GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.